Hey, it's Brian Burns. Welcome to this episode of the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the customer experience. Now, this is kind of not talked about very much, but it's critical because it spans the whole experience from being a prospect all the way to being an advocate. And the smart companies are trying to figure this out. They're trying to make it as frictionless and easy and pleasant as possible. And it's hard to talk about this area without talking about B2C examples. But in B2B, this is just as critical. Why? Because people are living in the B2C world, and when they go to B2B, everything's all hard about scheduling an appointment, talking to a salesperson, having to fill out a form. All of this stuff is going to change very quickly in the next couple of years. It's already started. It's going to accelerate, and we're going to talk about that today with Shep. Shep's joining us. He's an expert in this area. He's got passion for it. We're going to give real-world examples of how to do it and how to integrate this into your company. It is a leadership issue, but it touches every person that the customer touches, and even internally with your employees, about having an attitude, a culture, an approach to helping everybody out. Because internally, we have customers. Our customers may be the employees themselves, maybe sales, maybe marketing, maybe engineering. But instead of having these rigid SLAs, about service level agreements, what we should have is more of a culture of doing the right thing and defining what the right thing is, giving examples about what is right, what is wrong, and ingraining this into the organization. It may sound idealistic, but it is what works. So we're going to get into it today. And before we do, I want to make sure you're aware I'm offering up the courses, both closing the complex sale and starting the conversation and get the meeting on a team basis. So if you have a whole team or a company or you want it customized to you, I'm doing that as well. Let's get into the interview. And at the end, I'll sum up the interview and tell you about what's going on in my world. Hey, Shep, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Hey, well, I've been doing this I'm a customer service and experience expert, and I've been involved in this business for about 35 years, since 1983. That'll tell you I either started when I was a teenager or I'm old. So here's the interesting thing. My first presentation where I was, and people know me as a keynote speaker that speaks to this topic all over the world, but my first paid presentation wasn't a customer service speech. It was a magic show when I was 12 years old. So I earned my abilities to speak in front of an audience. I earned my chops by doing magic shows, and eventually, worked in nightclubs and comedy clubs while I was in, high school and college. So came out of college and I said, I want to be a speaker. Saw a couple of speakers, did a bunch of research, and I said, this is my passion, customer service. If we have time, I'll tell you there was a defining moment that I discovered just Wednesday that I think sums up what my entire life is about. And by the way, if I share this with you, you will be the first show that I've ever shared this on. I haven't even told my wife yet.
Oh, boy. You got the inside scoop, huh?
I can give it to you. So I'll give it to you. Here's the deal. Customer service and experience. I talk about the lessons that I learned as a kid from my parents who taught me to write thank you notes, follow up, make sure the clients were happy when I did my magic shows. And I was 12 years old. Great customer service lessons. Here it is. I call it the snowplow moment. Age 16, St. Louis, Missouri, middle of the winter. I asked my dad to go help me find an old, Jeep with a snowplow, and we bought one. Actually, it was an old Ford Bronco. It was probably about 10 years old. I paid $900. I think the snowplow was worth $700, so you'll know what kind of condition the car was in. I restored it a little bit to where I could drive it, and I started plowing driveways. And I'll never forget, I got up, and I had a group of about 15, 16 customers that I would get really early in the morning. I'd start at 4 in the morning, and I was done by 6:30, 7 o'clock by the time they woke up. And one cold morning, I got up. There was snow on the ground. 4 a.m., went to turn on my car. Nothing happened. It was dead, and I didn't know what to do. So I'm only 16 years old. Well, there was another kid who was 16 years old who his father had bought him or maybe it was a family car, a brand new gigantic like Chevy Blazer with a big, huge plow on it. Now, he got the big jobs like plowing the school driveway. I was just doing little driveways. Well, I called him up at 4 a.m. and I said, hey, man, I'm in a bind. I've got 15 or 16 driveways I got to plow. They're easy. If you help me out, I'll give you all of the money. And he came over, picked me up, and we went to all of those driveways, finished them up in a couple hours, and I gave him all of the money. And I realized that was the right thing to do to make sure my customers were taken care of. But I also recognize, looking back, that that's me. It's not always about the money. It's about taking care of that customer. I mean, if you do it right, the money comes, but you've got to make decisions sometimes that are tough. I mean, I could have gone back to sleep and said, there's nothing I can do, but that's not the way I roll. So that was kind of a defining moment. We cut to just a year ago where I'm trying to get to a speech and planes are canceled and the client's worried whether or not I show up. I said, until I don't show up, figure I'm going to show up. I chartered a plane, over $10,000, paid for it myself. The client never saw the bill, and I was there. So that's just me.
I like that.
And so that's what I teach. When I talk about customer service, it's really passion from within inside. And there's many different ways we can deliver a great experience, but the one thing the customer needs to count on is that they know that the person you're doing business with, that they can trust that person or that company, they have confidence in it. And I think that's the difference between being a vendor and being a partner. And I realize a lot of the people listening to the show are B2B, and that's the way we need to think. We shouldn't be just a vendor. We should be partners with our customers.
And very few people look at it that way. And why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's just something that it's not natural to think that way. It's natural to think, I want to have a customer. I want to have a long-term loyal customer. And what can I do to, make sure my customer is always happy? But being a partner is that on steroids. It's thinking about not just making sure I take care of the customer, but thinking about the customer's success. Taking care of the customer in the driveway, plowing the driveway business means they get up in the morning and they see their driveway is plowed. But if the customer ever knew that I was willing to give up all the money I was making that day to pay someone else because my car was broken down, they would say, this is a guy I can depend on. This is a guy, I want to affiliate with. I realize partnership is a strong word to use for a guy plowing a driveway, but I'm the guy that they'll say they'll use next year and the year after and the year after because they know they can depend on me because I'm thinking about them before I'm thinking about the check they're going to write me.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that. I grew up having a paper route, and I had customers. I had one guy who says, any way I could get this paper earlier? I'm up at really early. And then I go, well, what's really early? He goes, like 5 a.m. And I'm like, well, the papers don't even get to me until 6.
And so what do you do?
Well, I ended up going to his house first, which was not convenient. And he appreciated it. And it just became part of my reputation in the neighborhood. And it also taught me a great lesson in that everybody in the neighborhood knew me. So I ended up having more business than I knew what to do with, because it wasn't just papers. It was lawn mowing, it was babysitting, It was
right. Yeah.
And so I ended up being this contractor essentially, hiring my brothers and my friends to do a lot of the work, and always cleaning up after them and making sure that people were happy. And I think it's something you either get or you don't get. And I think a lot of people have the "it's not my job" mentality that really doesn't scale.
Yeah, there's really, everybody has two jobs. No matter who or what they do, they have two jobs. Number one is to do the job that they were hired to do. And number two is to understand that their job impacts the customer, and they need to take care of that customer. So Disney says they have three jobs. And I think actually in a lot of places that's appropriate as well. And that is, do the job you're hired to do, take care of the guest, which is their customer, and keep the park clean. If you see a piece of paper, it's your job to pick it up, regardless of the fact that they hire maintenance people to do that all the time. If your job is to, take tickets, and you're walking somewhere and a guest has a question. You take care of that guest, even though your job was to be, doing something else, and maybe you're on a break. That's the way you need to think. That's the Disney mentality. That's the partnership mentality. And that's what, when people understand that, they excel. There's a great story. I think it was a JFK story. And John F. Kennedy was at the Space Center, and he saw somebody who was, obviously a maintenance guy. And he says, "So what's your role here?" He says, "Well, I'm helping to put a rocket ship on the moon." He wasn't there just to sweep up. He recognized that part of his job was much bigger than just the job he was actually hired to do. His customers were those astronauts that were going up in space.
And that's it. And I see so many companies totally miss this. I have lots of examples. I recently cut the cable cord, which required me to return equipment that was so old. Some of the little stands on the bottom had disintegrated when I picked them up.
The little rubber feet.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you have to find the depot to drop them off. And of course they want to upsell you so you don't go with another vendor. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And they go, yeah, but you have to take this DVR. And I go, well, I have no use for that. Well, you have to take it. And I go, you understand I have no use. Why do I have to take it? And I know they want to get a rental fee. And I go, can I take it and just give it back to you? No, you can't do that. You get, 2 years of free rental on it. And I go, then in 2 years when I move, I have to come back here? He goes, or you could ship it to us. Oh, that's a lot easier. It was just like this myopic view of it. And the thing was, their competitor had the same type of view. They're trying to get you into this recurring revenue stream that is 100% about them.
And this is a perfect segue into a new topic, which is the topic of them being inconvenient to you and maybe somebody else being more convenient that you want to do business with.
Yes. And I get at least one mailer a week from their competitor trying to get me to switch to their service, which is better. And I would switch, but my whole business is based on the internet. So a day off the internet is intolerable for me.
Right. It's impossible.
But if they had stopped by my house and they go, this is what we'll do. You stay on this. We will switch you in 1 hour. If we can't get it to work, we'll switch you back. And that would, because they'd have to do that anyway if I wanted
You're
to.
You're not talking about a cable TV or internet company now, are you?
I am.
So in all fairness, I do some work with Comcast and a couple of the cable providers. They try, and as an industry, that internet cable telco industry is just at the bottom of the list when it comes to what great customer experiences are out there. If you look at the American Customer Satisfaction Index, they're down, toward the bottom. I think they're just above the government. And by the way, which I know I joke about the government and all that, about 2 years ago, virtually every sector in every industry had improvements in customer service and experience. In other words, customers were saying, yeah, we're happier. The issue is it's not enough. These companies, and there's many others beyond just telco and internet and even the government. I mean, you've got so many different, financial service companies that are down there that need to catch up to where the bar has been raised to. And the bar has been raised to companies like, Amazon, well, A to Z, Amazon to Zappos, owned coincidentally by Amazon, and everything in between. And these companies have created this experience that customers now expect from every company they do business with, not just direct competitors. So it doesn't matter if you're B2C, B2B, government to consumer or constituent. It makes no difference. The bar is raised, and we need to accept the responsibility that if we're going to be really good, we need to be Amazon good. Yeah. So it's that simple.
And that is the bar, is Amazon. Because if you look at that and how simple it is, I'll give you an idea, because they compete against Apple with the Apple TV. Now, I bought both the Apple TV and the Amazon Fire. Okay, I've been with both companies for 20 years. Amazon Fire shows up with my username and password already in it. Apple, not so much.
Maybe every. I know. Isn't it frustrating that, gosh, I always have to put my password in, and you shouldn't have to do that. And if it's a TV, by the way, a big TV, that means you've got your remote control and you're doing it one letter at a time and slide, using the arrow button to slide over, and you realize you made a mistake, you got to start over. It could take 10 minutes to get in.
Yeah, and I look at my passport's expiring, and you have to go and get a physical picture, send it in with your old passport, and I'm like, isn't there an app for this? I've got a phone that recognizes my face. Okay, now if you're telling me that that's less secure than me going and getting a photo from 15 years ago technology,
right,
and sending that in. And what are the problems that it could get lost in the mail? It could get lost there. Then where am I?
Right, exactly. I'm actually getting ready to go to a foreign country that required me to actually go to either Washington, D.C. or New York to get my work visa.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it from here. I couldn't do it from any other place. And I'm thinking, really? And I was over there about a year and a half ago, and I didn't have any of this. I actually picked it up when I landed over there, and now I have to do it ahead of time. And they've had my passport now for over 3 weeks. I'm getting nervous.
And you should, because it's like a lot of things happen. I mean, I sold to the government forever, and you were like, you'd walk around the Pentagon, and there'd be people playing poker on their computers all day, and you're like, oh, God.
I won't go there because, those...
But on the B2B side, who owns this? Is it everybody? Is it the CEO? What works as far as like helping a company turn around?
Well, it starts with the CEO and all the leadership. They have to have a meeting, and they have to discuss. So let's just talk about customer service and experience. What's the service vision or the experience vision? I call that the mantra. What do you want to be known for? That isn't your tagline, although in some companies it is a tagline. It isn't your mission or vision statement, and it can be extracted from that, but it needs to be a one-sentence phrase that everybody in the organization can understand, hold on to, and that a company is willing to live with and train their people to. And I'll give you an example. My favorite one is the Ritz-Carlton, which is 9 words long. We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. You come to work at the Ritz, they tell you that's who we are, and then they start training you to act that way. Depending on what you do, you're going to be trained differently as a housekeeper than if you're at the front desk, than if you're behind the scenes doing auditing at night and getting the invoices or bills ready for when the customers or guests check out the next morning. But everybody understands we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, and that's powerful. We just worked with a company who very excited. We actually nailed it within 1 day, and it was 3 words, amazing. Well, actually 4 words, amazing at every stage. And I'm not going to tell you who the client is, but it's very appropriate for what they do. They're in the type of business where there is a stage that they work off of as a platform, and it's pretty cool. So I think, one of my other favorites comes from a company down in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a hard name for me to pronounce, but it's like Synopsis Hopus or something like that. It's hard. They're a technology company. But basically, we kiss our clients till their lips bleed. That's how passionate they are about taking care of their clients. So,
and it does
symbiosis. There it is.
Right, because when I was a rep and my clients had a problem, they'd call me, and I would literally walk down to support and get a support rep to get on the phone and walk them through it and sit there until it was resolved. And customers loved that. And it pays off. And I see a lot of people just ignore the calls or tell them it's somebody else. Or, call support. I don't take care of that. And that sense of ownership was just gone. And I even worked at a company where I couldn't get even my own employees to call me back. And I talked to my boss. I go, isn't there a policy that you call employees back?
Right.
It was like, no, you're on your own. And you're like, what a crummy company. And it is a cultural thing. And I see it in different geographies of the country that certainly certain areas, it's like everybody's autonomous and the interfaces have to be well defined and what the service level agreements agreed to. And I'm like, really? You can't be a human being and focus on what the customer wants and what the company needs to make it happen? And
I know, and that's important. I mean, it's crazy the way some people think, some companies operate, the processes they have that get in the way of what I think is common sense. So it happens out there in every type of business.
And that's it. When you have a CEO who wants the kids to fight, thinking that tension is going to make things better, and a little tension's good, but when it's really finger pointing and trying to get each other fired, and blaming other people, that's not constructive.
Yeah, no blame game. I actually just wrote an article that'll come out. I don't know if it's going to come out right before or after our show airs here, but it's on the blame game. So get this. I'm at a restaurant the other night, and the guy, one of our friends at the table, ordered a salad that really looked like it was half the salad that we expected. And the other person across the table ordered the same salad that looked like it should have been normal. And the funny thing is I said, or my friend said something to him, and I made a comment to the server. I go, can't you see the difference? And his exact words were, I don't make the salads. I just serve them.
Yeah.
And I'm going, really? And he says, it's a problem in the back. It's basically not my fault. I mean, that's the blame game. Is that ridiculous?
Right.
Boy, there's so many things we could write about there. I can't make this kind of stuff up. It happens.
And that's it. What does the owner want? The owner wants to pick. Let me get you a new salad.
Yeah. Well, the owner was appalled. There was several other things, and it wasn't even an owner. It was the manager at a major restaurant, top 10 restaurant supposedly in the city. And they blew this, and they said, "Let me buy you your dinner." And there's 9 of us at the table, and I'm thinking, "Sir, you don't have to buy us dinner." That's not why we're complaining. We're complaining because we want to get it made right.
Yeah.
And so it was too late at that point. He says, come back tomorrow, because we knew we were in the hotel. Come back tomorrow and I'll take care of you. And I said, I don't know what taking care of me means, but I'm probably not coming back tomorrow. This was really for the money that we spent. It was great food, terrible experience. And I appreciate you trying. He says, I really want you to give me a shot. I promise you'll be happy. So the next day, friends of ours said, let's go back up there. I go, ugh. So I went up, and 5 o'clock I went up when the restaurant opened to tell him I'm coming back in at 8. And if he's going to take care of me, I want to know what that means, or else we're going to go find a new place. And I said, I don't expect you to buy our meals. That's not what I'm talking about. So I want to know what the difference between last night and tonight will be. And he did give us a few perks, like an appetizer or whatever. But they really nailed it that night. They did a good job. So I think complaints are gifts, and anytime a customer has something critical to say about us and does it in a constructive way, I think that's a great opportunity to thank that customer and turn around and show them that you can do it right and restore their confidence, maybe even to a higher level than it was before the problem ever happened.
And how do you convince an organization to do that? Or from your perspective? I mean,
it's all training.
Yeah.
It's all training. So you have to train people to the mindset. You can't naturally let it happen. It will with some people, but not with everyone. Everybody needs to be in alignment. And if they aren't in alignment with that service vision that we talked about earlier, that mantra, and you haven't properly trained them, all you have is just a vision that has no meat to it, no teeth to it, I guess. Would be a good way of saying it.
And that's it, because I see that this disconnect. Like I go to this, car dealership, and they're usually, they're pretty polite. They're very expensive. They're a good B plus, maybe A minus. But then at the end, they always are begging you, hey, you're going to get a call from the car company.
I hate that. I hate that.
Please, is there any reason why you wouldn't give us 5 stars?
Yeah. Because you're asking me to give you 5. You're begging me. But I do appreciate, and I wrote an article about this as well. I have a great car dealership, and I'll tell you why I use them in a moment if you want. But they say if there's any reason that you would give us less than a 5-star rating on a scale of 1 to 5, will you let us know so we can fix it? They don't say we're going to get a survey. Now, I know I'm going to get a survey. And by the way, I got the survey the first time I brought the car in. And actually, I didn't bring it in. The first time the car was in for service, they came and picked it up, which is the topic I'd love to share with you about why I do business with this car dealership. The survey was, I actually got survey fatigue. There were so many questions. The second time the car was in for service, I got the same survey and I didn't answer it. And I just won't anymore because it's ridiculous. And by the way, every dealership does this type of thing. And I think that if they learn how to take good surveys or deliver good surveys, they would get more feedback and better feedback. They'd get more interaction with their customers. And they just don't do it. I mean, the survey should be short to the point. If you want something longer, pick it up. Make it subjective, not just objective. So,
and why tell me or ask me at the very end? Do it if they did it at the very beginning, I'd be like, oh, okay. Then you have an incentive to cooperate with me, help me,
right,
and then I would have the opening to answer that. And yes, I've gotten those surveys, and I get them from car rental places, airlines, all the time, and they're arduous and 100% about them, nothing about me. And I don't get the sense if I invest the time in this that there's anything that's going to change.
Right. The other day I was on American Airlines, and afterwards there was a 1-question survey, and basically it said, I can't remember what the exact question is. I'd like to go back and hear it again, but it was essentially, it's all about customer service. Did this agent give you the service that you expected, or something like yes for 1, or push 1 for yes, 2 for no. That was it. Somebody told me Delta Airlines has something similar. I haven't experienced it yet, so I'm only speaking from what my friend said. He says, but basically the question is, if you owned a customer service company, would you hire this person to work for you? That's a cool question.
That's a good question.
It's a good question. So you want to hear why this car dealership earned my business after 24 years with another car dealership?
Yeah, hit us up.
All right, because this is big. I think that we talked very briefly before the show even started. So I'd been doing business for 24 years with a dealership. My wife, we were bike riding, and it's all sweaty, and she was telling me there's a car I need to see. It's the most beautiful car, and I was due to buy a new car. My car is 9 years old back then. I keep my cars anywhere from 8 to 10 years. And we drove by a dealer, or we're riding our bikes by a dealership, and there it is in the window. And she goes, let's stop and look at it. So we got in there, and it's not my dealership. It's one that's like 10 miles away. My dealership is about a mile from my office. I drop the car off. I walk to work because many times they don't have a loaner for me, but that's okay. And you know what? They're a car dealership. My salesperson is a different salesperson every time I went in to buy a car, but I bought my cars there, my wife's cars. So we're in this dealership, and the guy lets me test drive the car even though I sweat. I'm sweaty. It's a great car, and I come back and I say, I'd love to buy the car, but I'm not going to probably buy it from your dealership. You're too far away. And when I come in for service, it just, it'd be a hassle. And he says, sir, do you see a waiting room in this dealership? And I said, no. He says, well, we have one. It's small, and you don't see it because most people don't sit there and wait because we bring the car to you. We bring a new car to you, and we pick up your car. We service it. We bring it back. No extra charge. That's our white glove concierge service. That's what we do for all of our customers. I said, really? And you'll put that in writing? He goes, oh, absolutely. For as long as you own the car, we will service your car. Wow. Guess what? After 24 years of one dealership, I switched to another. The other one was just a car dealership who did what they were supposed to do. Nothing special, nothing great. Sure, they took care of me, but there was no relationship. This one out-convenienced the other one. And we briefly touched on it earlier in our conversation, but I think the biggest difference that companies can make today, because every company is wanting to provide great service. And if our competition is also delivering good service, regardless of the industry, regardless of the business, one way we can be better is to out-convenience them. So it could be, if I'm calling my vendor, I might rather than me call them, they'll be proactive and call me. That makes it more convenient. They'll they can do many things to make life better. I've identified 6 areas convenience. One is just reduce friction. Just reduce friction, period, the end. How do you do that? Think about what Uber did to the taxi cab industry. Yeah. They eliminated all kinds of friction. You don't have to reach in your pocket to pull out your money. You just walk out of the car. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got a funny story. The company that holds my mortgage, the tax statement you need for your income tax, they sent me a letter about where I could find it online. And I go, well, if you're going to send me a letter, why don't you send me the form?
If you're going to send the letter anyway.
Right? Because now I have to go, how often do you log in? Once a year to get your statement? It was like, what logic? Who thought this up?
I'm amazed at what. Anyway, what? That was the IRS?
No, that was my bank.
Oh, your bank. Bank.
My bank did that.
And we got to talk to them. They need to read my book.
Yeah, and I was interviewing a guy who's coming up with a blockchain way of you selling a portion of your house versus trying to get like either a reverse mortgage or a home equity line of credit. And I'm self-employed, so trying to get any type of credit is terrible because I run my business tight, and they're used to people who have a salary and it doesn't matter how many assets you have. And it's like, I just can't go through the exercise. You guys just don't get it. And it's like, oh, you have, 80% equity to loan. Right. You're like, what risk do you have?
Right. And that's the point. There is none.
There's no risk, and they don't get it and they will never change. And it's like the government, like we started with, and you're going to lose. Someone's going to disrupt this space.
Yeah, and that's the point. Is the one that disrupts the space is the one right now that is going to just not only outservice, and that's a customer service process issue. But like you said, wouldn't it have been easier if they sent it to you? Isn't that, to use the words, more convenient? One of the case studies in the new book, and by the way, the book's called The Convenience Revolution. Subtitled How to Deliver a Customer Service Experience That Disrupts the Competition and Creates Fierce Loyalty. Huntington Bank is in the book as the convenience role model for what I call access. Now, access is how close you are to something. Think about how many Starbucks there are. You have access to lots of Starbucks. Walmart's, access to lots of Walmarts. And 24-hour availability online is access. But Huntington Bank took friction from bank customers who, typically, the banker's hours, they're the same hours as my hours at work. When can I go to the bank? Oh, I got to rush to the bank at lunchtime. Oh, there's a long line because everybody's rushing to the bank at lunchtime. So what they said is, let's just stay open a couple hours later. Let's stay open on Saturday for some hours to give our customers the hours that they need that are convenient for them. So that's what they're out-conveniencing their competition.
Yeah. Hey, this has been a great conversation, Shep. Where do people go to get your book, connect with you, and learn more about your work?
Sure. Well, let's make it easy. BeConvenient.com, and that will get them actually to the page about the book on my website. So from there, they can look around and see what's going on with me. But the book right now, it comes out in October. But if you buy it now, we'll pay the shipping, we'll pay the tax, and today, or whenever you buy it, you will get the ebook. That's the actual ebook that they're selling on Amazon right now for $19.95 when it comes out. That will be free, and you get it today. You don't have to wait till the book comes out because the actual book is on its way to the printer, according to the publisher. It's on its way to the printer, and we have the ebook, and that is what it's going to be. So what a deal. BeConvenient.com.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was great. Yeah, so the courses are now going to be customized to a company. So we needed probably a minimum of 3 to 5 students to make it economic sense, as opposed to just going into the open courses. You can take a look at them at b2brevenue.com under training. And if you would like to schedule a time to talk about it, just to learn more about it, to see if it fits what you're doing, I have a calendar link on that same page under training. You can pick a 15-minute spot and we can see if it's a match for your company. So what I do is I match it up to exactly what you're doing, customize the course, make a version of the course for you specifically, and we can set up any number of office hours that are private to you. Let me know if that interests you. And also, please check out nudge.ai. I did an interview with the CTO there, Steve Woods, and we're talking about what I'm calling the third or fourth door of getting into a company. Everyone's going through the front door, through ads, through cold calls, through email, through content. That's the front door. The side door is somebody you may know. The third door is your relationships with people who know people there. So it's much more than a referral, but it's a contextual referral about understanding what the company's up against, you having a relationship with somebody there or indirectly. And instead of asking for an introduction, it's discussing with them exactly what's going on in the company, see if it's a match to kind of pre-qualify it. Because this qualification phase of both marketing and sales can be done through AI and through the internet to see how closely they are matched to your ideal customer profile. Instead of having people pound the calls, in a recent study, they're saying only 3% pick up the phone today. That means you have to make a lot of calls. And yes, you have these automation services and techniques, but that's making the problem worse, not better. Because what's going to happen sooner or later is no one's ever going to pick up the phone. And companies today are even not installing desk phones anymore. So we got to understand where the world's going, and where it's going is the connections that we have, the relationships that we have, the interpersonal connections, and the extensions, the tentacles of it are critical. We talk about this on gong.io's blog, so check out there. They've done some great research. They had a recent report on language during the call and the demos of using I and we, when you should use either or both, and how effective they are in certain contextual situations. So if you have people on the phones, either on cold calls or on demos, check out the research there. It is unprecedented and it's scientific. It's not anecdotal or self-reporting. The other is Discover.org. Discover.org's done some great stuff as far as how to identify your ideal customer profile, how to really focus your marketing efforts, your sales efforts, and the data that you really need. I see a lot of people doing this thing, what I call data concierge, cleaning up the data. And why not start with a clean data set at 1/10 or 1/100th the cost of hiring people to do that for you? Have a centralized way of doing that. That's what they're doing. And Co-Video, another partner of ours, they're doing great work using video emails as cutting through the noise. It's very personalized. It really lets people come out with their personality. And there's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get used to doing it, and I've gotten used to do it, it's so much more effective because people get a sense of who you are. And this is the year of video, 2018, right here. If you're on Instagram, so am I, at Brian G. Burns on Instagram, Brian Burns on YouTube, and Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Connect up with me. Please, if you see my content, please share it. And let me know that you listen to the podcast. I'd really appreciate that. Make sure somebody's actually out there listening. I know you are. Look at the iTunes rankings. I appreciate all your help. Thanks. And tell somebody about the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast.